Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Connecticut Valley School of Music podcast. And with us this afternoon, we have Mr. Bob Petzold, who is the president of Petzold Marine Center. And has been a long-standing anchor in the Portland economic development. Hi, Bob. How you doing?
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming down. We've been trying to focus on, getting people aware of Portland businesses in town, and certainly you've been a hallmark business for many years that your grandfather started, and I think your dad's,
Well, my grandparents, and I'll say both of them, my grandfather was really the brains was the brawn, and my grandmother was the brains. So, without the two of them, it wouldn't have been anything. So it was really a team effort. So if it was just my grandfather, it probably would have crashed and burned. But my grandmother kept everybody pretty well grounded, and that was 80 years ago.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the old saying is, behind every great man, there's a great woman.
Absolutely.
So fantastic. So how long have you been, at the helm now for?
Probably I've been the president, I don't know, maybe 25 years or so. Uh-huh. It's hard to think back. I've been there since, I was little. I used to come to work with my father in the morning, pick up the school bus in front of the boatyard and get dropped back off at the end of the day and spend my days there. So,
get back off the school bus and
exactly, back to work. So it's been a long time.
So tell me, what, I know you have Portland. You also have Old Sabre?
We have our main office here in Portland, which is the marina, which sells boats, services boats. We have a large ship store there. And then we have a sales location in Norwalk, Connecticut, another sales location in Warwick, Rhode Island. And we bought a marina 5 years ago in Chester.
Oh, okay. All right. So you're pretty well diversified.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you started out, obviously, were you into the larger boats, or were you into the smaller boats when your grandfather started?
Well, when my grandfather started, it was really out of on Route 66, out of his.
I remember that.
Right out of his garage.
Yeah.
Repairing outboard motors. And then he subsequently ended up purchasing the piece of property next to, which is where the prehistoric golf sets and the yoga studio. He turned that into a showroom over time. He put a chicken coop up there as the first building that he moved from Middletown over there. So that was the first official building over there. But selling and servicing small boats and motors until about 1964, where the boats just became too large to handle off of the highway location, and he purchased the property that we're presently at Indian Hill Avenue.
Right. So, what are the largest boats that you have?
We have boats a little over 60 feet, so we're really from 15 feet to 60 feet. So we really have the full spectrum there.
And now you're right on the river, so you've got the deep water channel there.
We do, right off the main channel.
Main channel. So now, in fact, talking on the way up the stairs here, nice weather. People are getting itchy to get their boats in the water.
Oh, I can tell what the weather is without even looking outside. If the phone's ringing, I know the weather's good. If it's not ringing, I know it's cloudy and rainy outside. And today the phone is ringing off the hook, which is great.
Well, that's good. So, you get to a situation now. You have, obviously multiple travel lists that you can get boats in and out and all that.
We do. That's one of the things that keeps us, getting as much work in and out as possible. We run 3 travel lifts. Have about 30 people employed here in Portland. So, this time of year, we're launching anywhere from 40 to 60 boats a week. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, you also service the boats, which would mean redoing bottoms and
correct. We
painting.
do. We do everything from the easiest, simplest jobs, painting bottoms, waxing, to engine replacements and rebuilding, to electronics. We can pretty much do it all in house.
So when people say, "Hey, I want my boat in the water," so it's one size fits all. You start and you actually clean the inside of the boat if you need to, right?
We do everything. So, we have some customers who are self-service customers, meaning we just store their boats, and primarily they do a lot of the work themselves. But the majority of our customers we do full service on, which again is everything from when they come out in the fall, winterization, shrink wrapping, or storing them inside our buildings. And then over the course of the winter, normally our customers will give us a laundry list of repairs, upgrades that they want to make during the winter. So hopefully we're ready for springtime to get them back in the water, commissioned and ready to roll.
Now, how many boats can you fit inside up there?
Inside, we're about 150.
Wow.
Total, we were, I think, around 430 this year.
Okay.
So we were pretty well packed right to the seams.
Now, are your other locations have storage also, or are they basically just in the water?
Our two sales locations, which are Norwalk and Warwick, Rhode Island, we don't do any service out of there. We do have one service personnel down in Fairfield County handling warranty work for the new boats that we sell in the area, but we don't do any storage. But in Chester, it's a full-service marina.
Okay, and you have the indoor storage there as well?
We don't have an indoor storage. We do have an indoor workshop, but all the boats are stored outside, shrunk wrap.
Now, you also, how many boat shows do you participate? I know you...
Oh, God, you're going to...
That's a whole different animal.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's way too many, but you're, unfortunately, sometimes you're afraid to miss out. So locally, we do the Hartford Boat Show, which is at the Mohegan Sun, Norwalk Boat Show, which is in the fall in Norwalk. We did Newport in the Water Show, Fort Lauderdale, Miami shows, Palm Beach shows.
Okay.
So we do some major shows outside the state as well.
Now, do you also have the snowbirds that you have to bring their boats down and bring them back?
We do have some. It's not like it used to be. Again, the cost of fuel and bringing the boats south. Dockage in Florida is at a premium, so that, it doesn't make a lot of economic sense to take your boat back and forth to Florida as it did years ago. A lot of our customers who do go south for the winter will either buy a small boat and keep it down there.
Okay.
It's more cost effective, or belong to a boat club of some sort.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I know years ago, when I was playing in the band, we used to play at the Middletown Yacht Club all the time down there. That used to be but those boats were pretty much on the smaller side, but it was a fun organization.
Great club.
They used to have a lot of fun down there. Have dances on Saturday nights, and
my grandparents were members up until the time they passed.
Yeah, that's for sure.
A lot of fond memories myself down there.
Yeah, did a lot of weddings down there, and they used to rent the place out. But we used, you got a gorgeous view of the river, and it overlooks the river and so forth. Now, when you get into a situation where you're moving boats around, and I know the boat shows, those are probably a necessary evil.
Correct. Correct. Nobody looks forward to them.
A lot of times during the Hartford Boat Show, I'll see a caravan of your trucks with trailers heading out of town, go from there. Now, are those for the smaller boats that you usually bring up to there?
Generally, the Hartford Boat Show is usually 30 feet and under.
Oh, okay.
The fall shows, which are in the water, are larger boats.
Okay.
So the Newport and Norwalk shows are for larger boats.
Wow. Now, is pretty much everything as far as power-wise gone diesel or?
Not really, Dave. It's still a mixture of gas and diesel. There's a little experimentation going on right now with electric, but, like everything else, I think that'll come. But, battery power and weight versus horsepower just doesn't give you the range right now. But I would say it's a 50-50 mixture of gas and diesel.
Yeah, it's ironic. We had I did my water presentation, and we were up in Saratoga Springs, and there was a lady that did a presentation. A lot of the utilities now are starting to go with EV meter reading trucks,
sure,
and so forth. And the jury's kind of still out on that,
Well, I think eventually it's going to get there, but the technology, needs to be there to make it worthwhile, to make sense out of them.
Well, I think, from the standpoint of supply side, I don't think the infrastructure is there quite as far as on Northeast Utilities.
No, definitely not.
Or Eversource. Oh. Northeast Utilities, remember?
It's CLMP, but prior to that.
Oh, my God. Connecticut Light and Power. Oh, my God.
Now we're dating ourselves.
Yeah, tell me about it. Tell me about it. And I mean, obviously, with boats that do people, frequent when they come down and frequent, you have a lot of people that just like to sit on their boats, or they, with the cost of fuel, has that hampered people going out?
It's changed a little bit. With time. It used to be years ago, we'd sell a lot of big boats, and people would either spend their weekends on them traveling, or they'd use them as summer cottages. But, today everybody's so darn busy, right?
Yes.
Their kids have a million activities, which go year round, whether sports that go year round. So we're seeing even larger boats. The styles of them have changed, where there's not as much overnighting on them, whereas it's 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon and we have, 6 hours to kill. We'll go out for the day on these boats and come back. So there's kind of this resurgence of day boating.
Okay.
Bring family and friends out, but not necessarily spend the entire weekend on them. There's still a lot of it, but the market is changing as people's times are changing.
Now, do people go out to Block and Martha's Vineyard quite a bit on your boats?
Oh yeah. I mean, we have some of the best boating, and I think it is truly the best boating in Connecticut between our lakes and ponds and rivers. But I mean, you leave the Connecticut shoreline, you can be anywhere in Long Island, from Greenport to Sag Harbor to Montauk to Block Island, Fisher's Island,
Wow.
Newport, Mattatuck, all within a couple hours' time.
Wow. Well, fun fact, as far as Portland has the longest riverfront footage on the Connecticut River.
It sure does.
We have over 15 15
Yeah,
points
15 miles of waterfront for our small town.
Yeah.
A lot of twists and turns.
Yes, it's the big bend in the river.
Right.
For sure. So you get that, but you have a lot of people that will you have, for smaller boats, do you have people to launch their smaller boats on trailers?
We don't have a launch ramp down there, and I think that's one thing we've discussed in town for a number of years, is it'd be nice to have a public launch ramp. Portland Boat Works has a ramp, and Burn-On over there has a ramp, but we don't.
Okay.
We did years ago, and unfortunately we needed the riverfront, so we built docks in front of it.
Well, you got to do what makes
Right.
the money. That's where the business is. I obviously now Burn-On is a new player in town.
Yes.
They've been there, and so they did quite a bit of improvements down there.
They did a phenomenal job on their the commercial end of it.
Yeah, and so forth. But yeah, for sure. Ballparking price range. We're I know it's like buying a car. I mean, you can go from $20,000 to $400,000 and up. Where's that lie?
I mean, in new boats, depending on what you're looking for, we can get you into a nice, smaller deck boat, like a, 18, 20 footer, or a pontoon boat starting, 50, 60,000. And our boats go all the, up to $5 million.
Hello, people of the internet and YouTube. Thank you very much for clicking on our link. On today's walkthrough video, we're going to be highlighting our brand new 2025 EdgeWater 262cc. It just got delivered to Portland a couple of weeks ago, and I was up there for our annual open house and boat show and made a walkthrough video, but I figured I would re-upload it on here so everyone can see it. Okay, let's start the walkthrough of this EdgeWater 262cc. It's a 2025. We just got it in about a week ago. It is pewter gray with a pewter gray bottom and a white rub rail with a stainless steel insert. Twin 200s on this boat, so it'll be cruising in the high 30s and wide open, just about 50 miles an hour. This boat has Seakeeper Ride, you can see there with the trim tabs.
Oh, okay. Well, pontoon boats are quite popular.
Oh, they're really, they're really quite the rave right now. They're very practical. You can bring a dozen people out there. It's 100% usable space.
Yeah.
You can bring your dog. You can swim off them, fish off of them. Like I say, bring a dozen people. They're comfortable.
Yeah, and you don't need a whole lot.
And they're
of
not like the pontoon boats of the old days that just putt along. some of these things go pretty darn fast.
Yeah. Well, if you go out in Lake Pocatello, there's quite a lot of
Yeah,
pontoon
yeah.
boats out there for crying out loud. But they're nice party boats. I mean, you can go out
They
there,
are.
sit down there, and
And again, you can bring a dozen family and friends, and you don't feel like you're on top of each other.
right, right. Now, I know for years. I mean, I grew up and obviously I retired for the town after 50 years. But I know one of the guys that when I started working for the town was Joe Seiferman, and he used
Yes.
to run the training. Him and Rob used to run the training. What is it? Where they train boaters.
Oh yeah, they did for the Power Squadron.
The Power Squadron.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Robbie and Joe did a lot of training for the Power Squadron. They were very active in that.
Yeah, and obviously, do you recommend people buying the boat? Is there some type of training course that you
boating safety obviously is paramount. You're required to get a safe boating certificate, which is really an 8-hour course. That's required by law,
Yeah.
so you need that. But beyond that, the Coast Guard Auxiliary and the Power Squadrons do a phenomenal job training, and a lot of it is in plotting courses and things of that nature. So, you're not relying on 100% of electronics, which could at some point fail. A lot of additional safety information.
Yeah, yeah. Well, how vigilant now is Coast Guard? Does Coast Guard come up the river much, or
They don't.
no?
They don't. They come up to service the buoys, but they're really not patrolling. So really patrolling is the DEP and, the local police departments.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of the river, now, what kind of river traffic comes up? We don't get many barges up anymore.
There isn't any barges. Really, the last barges, we're going into Pratt & Whitney and Middletown for fuel, and that hasn't happened probably in 10, 15 years. And I think in your time on the river and in Portland, we used to get 3 barges a day at least go by up into East Hartford, bringing fuel oil into Hartford, and that stopped about 20 years ago.
Okay, yeah, one of the big Hess up off in Weathersfield.
Yeah, and even the trashed energy plant used to take coal and up there as well, but we haven't seen any. We don't get commercial traffic normally north of the Haddam Bridge.
Okay. And speaking of the Haddam Bridge, now they're retrofitting it. Somebody posted on Facebook. It took them a year to build the Haddam Bridge, and it's been over 3 years.
Well, it's kind of crazy. I was the chairman of the bridge committee for the Middlesex County Chamber of Commerce because of concerns of river traffic. The inability to open and close. So they put me in charge because I complained the most, obviously. So
okay, well,
but we had a process. It was 3 years, long, and we met with the engineers in American Bridge once a month in the surrounding businesses on each side of the bridge to minimize the impact of the closures, and also minimize the effects of the opening and closing or the closures to maritime traffic. But I'm happy to report that the bridge is back on its hourly opening schedule, which is what it was prior, and we haven't had any hiccups in a while. So hopefully marine traffic and highway traffic continues to move smoothly over that bridge.
So what did they actually replace? The gear pinions? And
pretty much everything on that bridge. So from the mechanical, the gears inside, the motorized mechanisms, all the wiring was replaced. So the submarine cable from shore to the bridge itself, along with the watchtower up top, and all electronics. So before everything was more mechanical, now it's all automated and computerized.
Is that still a manned?
It is.
It is.
It is.
Okay, so it is. So if I'm in a sailboat, I can't just go up and have them open the bridge for me.
It's on the hour.
It's on the hour.
So you would call and let them know that you're approaching, and they'd say, okay, it'll open on the hour.
Oh, okay.
And they'd allow you to pass. And
before that, they used to open it whenever.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
At will.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember we used to play a lot of weddings at the Gelston House down there, and a lot of times you get to a situation where the bridge was open, and the wedding party was late getting to the Gelston House. So,
Correct.
Oh God. So, oh yeah, for sure. Well, and is that one of the only swing bridges left around, or?
That's the only swing bridge. As you might have read, they're replacing Old Lime Drawbridge, which is the Amtrak and Shoreline East Bridge in Old Saybrook. So that bridge is being replaced right now. So they're building a new bridge alongside that. which I think is scheduled to complete maybe 2030.
Oh, okay.
They just started that, maybe even a little bit later on than that, but that'll be an entirely new bridge alongside of it.
For sure. Now, Thames, obviously Thames River, they get the submarine traffic down there, don't they?
Yes, correct.
Okay, so that's quite an endeavor to see those guys coming up the river.
When you go in the Thames and, you think you're in a big boat and you see those submarines, flowing in and out of there. And of course, they've got patrol boats guiding them in and out of there. They don't let you get anywhere near close to them.
Well, and that's you hear on the radio, a warship approaching us,
Correct.
Get out of the channel, whatever. So,
but pretty impressive.
Yes,
for
well,
sure.
I mean, we're the submarine capital of the world, so, for sure.
Absolutely.
And that's, and EB is still primarily one of the bigger manufacturers.
I believe they are.
Okay. There's a lot of people that work at EB.
Well, they require a lot of people. I think the military's spending a lot of money right now in upgrading warships, and they need skilled help. So you see them, even putting into the money into the local vocational schools, which is great. That the state can't afford to fund. You see private companies like EB coming in and funding welding and engineering and some of these other skills that they require.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for years I taught water boot camps at MDC, and it was last year, the year before, we had a girl who was, I think, from West Hartford or whatever, and because I asked her, what do you want to do? Because one of my things as far as developing succession planning to the water industry, and I said, what are you going to do? She says, I'm going to be a welder. I'm going to go to work at EB. Yep. I says, you go, girl.
Yeah.
And so forth. But and that's sadly the labor market is very, very tight. Okay, and unfortunately, I don't want to say, kids getting out of high school are brainwashed to go to college, but they are strongly encouraged to. But we lead kids into trades.
Well, absolutely. I just finished a course. I'm involved with the Connecticut Marine Trades Association, so we got together with Middlesex Community College, and we put together a 8-week real crash course in marine mechanics. So there was a half a dozen people from the marine industry, like myself, who taught the classes, and the college sponsored it. Again, because we need skilled people in the marine industry, and again, it's a good career. A lot of people don't realize it's a year-round career. You talked about the boats that we store during the wintertime.
Sure.
We're actually busier in the wintertime than we are during the summer. During the summer, people are enjoying their boats. During the wintertime, I have them, so we have a laundry list of things to work on during the winter months. So we're busy 12 months out of the year. And these are skilled, high-paying jobs.
Sure, yeah.
So we were happy that we just finished our first course. We had the roundup meeting yesterday to see what we did that we liked and what we didn't like. So we're preparing for next season's classes already.
Now, are there certifications that you have to get to become a Marine? How does that work?
There are. We send our people out for most of their certifications by engine manufacturers or skills. So again, during the winter months, our people are, they're in Laconia or out in Wisconsin or in Georgia or in Florida for a week at a time, taking courses, hands-on courses. And then, of course, during the year, we do a lot of online training as well.
Sure.
So a lot of our manufacturers have online training, which may be ongoing or prerequisites for the in-person training.
Right. Now, going back, obviously, how did COVID affect your industry?
Well, it was kind of crazy, Dave. When COVID first hit, we didn't know what to expect. Of course, I think it was in December or January that we first heard about COVID. We we're working into the Hartford Boat Show, and then we decided, we've got to cancel the Hartford Boat Show. We just can't figure out a way to safely get people in and out and masked and all that. We were supposed to have our 75th anniversary. We had a party all planned, and we pulled the plug on that a week before.
Right.
But when it hit, I was sitting on a lot of new boat inventory. And my brother, who's my partner and sales manager, I looked at him and I said, Ken, this is going to be like 2008. I said,
when the bottom fell out.
When the bottom fell out, I said, we get people walking in the door, just make these things disappear.
Yeah.
And that happened for about 3 weeks. And I look back and I go, God, those boats that we gave away in the first 3 weeks. And then after that, we started, doing video walkthroughs and inviting people in for personal tours and things of that nature, doing things in a different way. And then we realized, all of a sudden we're just swamped.
Yeah, yeah.
Because people are at home now, their kids are home. They don't have all those activities. What are they going to do? And what better thing to do than go boating?
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't for these people what they wanted to buy. It was what was available to buy at that particular time.
Wow.
So it was just crazy. I mean, I never would have guessed in a million years that that COVID would have pushed the needle. And what it did was it got another generation into boating.
Sure.
I'm big into, looking at, trends. And for the previous years, we were looking at the next demographic. What is the next demographic to sell to? Because our generation of boaters was dying out. Okay. So were we looking at Orientals? Were we looking at Hispanics? What was the next demographic that we had to target to get into boating? And all of a sudden, here we are. Whoops. And, we get this COVID and everybody wants to get boating.
It's a whole new ball game for sure.
So it was a boom for us. Our challenge now is to keep those people engaged and keep them into boating.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
So that's our challenge right now.
Well, Bob, that's what it's all about. And, it keeps the doors open and keeps the cash register ringing. Now, when you're dealing in new boat, do you deal directly with the manufacturers, or are there manufacturer shows that you guys go to attend?
No, for the most part, we're dealing with the manufacturers, so we're ordering inventory boats. A lot of our larger boats are custom-built boats, so we just had one roll in the other day that's, nearing $2 million that a customer started the build process on a year and a half ago. We had a lot of custom features on it. So in that, we'll work with the manufacturer and the customer and go through the build process. And then some of our other boats are pretty much cookie cutter, go through the list and check off what options and colors you want and get them ordered in.
Right.
But we do have a lot of in-stock inventory.
Well, as far as power plants go, you've got, obviously your outdrives and your inboards
and outboards are big again. It's crazy. My grandfather, if he had thought, he started out in the outboard business and that kind of, as boats got bigger, they just couldn't make outboards big enough. Now, we're selling these huge boats with 2, 3, 4, 5 outboards on the back and, up to 600 horsepower apiece. Yeah. My grandfather would roll over, scratching his head going, what the heck is going on?
Now, when you have a boat with like 5 outboards, do they have one central fuel supply on
Correct.
it? Okay.
For the most part.
It's not like, filling the jug on
No, for the most part, everything has a single tank. Some may have 2.
Okay.
But for the most part, they're a single tank.
I can remember we had a fishing boat with a Johnson, with a 10-horse Johnson on it. God, I remember filling the tank.
Oh, probably burned fuel like crazy too.
Oh my gosh, unbelievable. Well,
and mixing oil with it.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, for sure. But that's the way it was. But you've got obviously Johnson's been around, is still around, correct?
Actually, Johnson, of all the darn things, it's hard to believe that Johnson Evinrude was shut down, I think about 3 years ago now.
Uh-huh.
And that was a standard in the industry. I mean, my grandfather, that was his whole goal in life. You would have thought he won the lottery when he got the Evinrude outboard franchise.
Yeah. I
mean, that was probably the happiest day in his life when he got it. And if he knew today that they were out of business, he'd cry.
Right.
But again, they just didn't invest in new technology as some of the other manufacturers did. You get big and you get complacent.
Exactly. So when you get to a point where obviously manufacturing, have you noticed a supply chain issue with any of your stuff? Or?
We did during COVID for sure, where certain things weren't available. A lot of stuff was, in container ships somewhere offshore that hadn't landed yet. Not so much right now. I think inventory is pretty good. There was some scare that a lot of our stainless comes out of Canada, and that would be affected by tariffs and things of that nature. But we really haven't noticed anything really in the last couple of years.
Okay.
You know, during the COVID years, everything was a scarcity.
Yeah, well, that's.
I mean, they were shipping boats without toilets. You know, you'd get a boat and wouldn't have a toilet because they couldn't get a $500 toilet in a $500,000 boat.
Unbelievable. Well, I've been experiencing tariff issues here. I mean, most of my clientele is beginner entry level, and a lot of stuff comes from China or whatever, and I've experiencing quite a bit of that now. But it's starting to level out a little bit better. But and everybody's kind of dancing around. Well, do we eat it? Do we But ultimately, the prices go up and whatever, and you do what you need to do. That's it.
Right.
For sure. So anyway, Bob, thank you for coming down. I appreciate.
Well, thanks for having me.
Anything else you want to touch on? What's the next boat show coming up? So.
Next boat show for us, actually, we're pretty good till fall. So in September we'll be back in Newport, and then the following week, we're in Norwalk. So they're back-to-back weekends, which is good. So we just hop in them and drive them from one show to the next. So
there we go.
That part of it's pretty good. But it's a year-round cycle. We're looking forward to a good boating season. It looks like we finally got a stretch of good weather here. So we're hoping it continues because as I say, when the sun comes out, the wallets come out.
There you go. And it's good when the wallets come out. Fantastic. Right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode of the Connecticut Valley School of Music podcast. And with us in the house is the president of Petzold Marine Center, Mr. Bob Petzold. And Bob and I go back a long time. So, Bob, thank you so much for coming down. And good luck in the next boating season. We'll see you out on the water.
Sounds great.
That is all.